Spring has arrived at Pretty Pink Posh, and this release is filled with flowers and bunnies and eggs and everything that is wonderful about spring. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I'll be sharing a whole bunch of the Pretty Pink Posh spring release. Now, there are stamps, there are dies, there are stencils and embellishments, and there's a lot. So let's flip through a little bit of everything and then we'll make some cards. Let's start with the stamps first. This is the Easter icon stamp set. There is a die set that cuts out all the little images as well as circles and a little flower die. Next up we have the Easter greetings. I love these greetings with the straight font and the script font combined, and I love having the dies to cut them out. This is the Upright Greetings Easter edition, and these are vertical sentiments for something a little different. This is the Carrot Shaker dies, where you can create a little shaker card with a carrot. This is the Tulip Shaker dies. Again, create a shaker in the flower and the leaves. This is the Bunny Holder die. The holder die has arms that can hold elements. This is the Grass Border die. This is the holder die additions in Easter. There's a Butterfly border die as well. And this is the Treat Bucket Easter Editions die. So I'll share all of that in the video. This is the Fringe egg dies. You can create layered fringe for an egg. And this is the Build an Egg die set, where you can create lots of decorative eggs. This is the watercolor oval mask and stencil and the rectangular mask and stencil watercolor. Next up we have the Springtime Borders stencil. This is a layering stencil with 2 stencils in the pack. The Tiny Bows stencil, which is absolutely adorable. I think these bows would be great in any color. These are the Line Burst stencil, and you can create that in any color or with other mediums. This is the Hippity Hop clay confetti, the Spring Flowers clay confetti, and those are great for shakers, as well as the Spring Pastel shaker beads. I love those in shaker cards, and the Sugar Pop shaker beads. Now let's take some of those new supplies and make some cards. Let's start with the bunny holder dies. Now, as I mentioned, the holder dies all have little arms that are die cut out so that they can hold elements. And I do raise the arms in order to put the belly onto that little bunny. So there have been other holder dies in the past. There was a ghost and a fox, and you'll see that they all have the same element, those arms that are die cut out, and now there's lots of additions dies for what they can hold. But to put the bunny together, it's very simple. I added the belly, I added a little pink in the ears, then there's some eyes, a nose, and mouth, as well as whiskers. You can see the die set also comes with a little layered carrot and a tail that you can place on top of the tail. So if you wanted a different color tail than the body, I just added some glitter to my tail. For the background, I'm using the watercolor rectangular stencil. It also comes with a mask if you wanted to do a different color around the edge. I'm keeping mine white. This is sort of a watercolor blue sky background, and then I'll cut the grass border die to create the grass at the bottom. I also have, from the butterfly border, a couple of butterflies that I'll add to the sky as well. I've added some foam squares behind my bunny to pop him up. I only added the foam squares at the top of the bunny. The bottom is sitting on the grass, which is also popped up, so I don't need foam squares there. There's a couple eggs that I'm placing next to the bunny, and then the butterflies. There's one that's layered and one that's just a small tiny butterfly in the sky. And for the additions, for the holder die, the Easter editions, I've created a small basket and I'll fill it with a couple of eggs. You can see that I am adding the adhesive behind everything and then putting the eggs in there. It made it real easy, and then just a little foam square behind the bottom, and then just tuck it into that arm that is die cut. Makes it real simple. I had the same thing for the carrot there, and I decided to use both of those, one in each arm. And for the carrot, I just added a little liquid adhesive and then pushed up the little bunny's arm and added it in. And I don't know why I don't have the sentiment filmed, but I added one of those upright greetings for the sentiment underneath one of the butterflies. To start this next card, I'm using the watercolor oval background, and I'm using the stencil again. And this time, instead of one color, I'm using a rainbow of light colors. I'm trying to lightly blend as light as I can because I really want that light watercolor look to it in the background. And you can see that it just really makes it so easy to create that sort of flowy watercolor look without having to do any watercoloring, and I love that. Now for the Fringe egg dies, there are different layers and each layer has fringe at the bottom. So you just can cut them out of the same color or different colors like I did here. I've seen people cut them out of tissue paper. They look real nice that way as well. And layer them up and then just fluff that fringe a little bit so that you can tell that's what it is. And then I added one of those Easter greetings on top that I've die cut out and popped up. For this card, I'm starting with some solar spray. So this is the new solar spray from Simon Hurley for Ranger, and I've sprayed it on top of that line stencil. So it's hard to see in camera, but it makes a nice glowy, sort of shiny, iridescent effect on the background. And then I'll use some of the Tim Holtz sprays. These are the distress sprays to create different color eggs. Then I have two of the grass border dies cut out. I'll put one flat to the card and then one popped up. That gives you a nice layered grass effect there. I wanted this color to be a little bit bluer, so I'm adding a little bit of the salvaged patina ink right on top of the sprayed egg. Now, these build-in egg dies have lots of little elements that you can add. You can add them in just different color cardstocks. I decided, since my background is that speckled look with the spray, that I'm just adding elements in gold, and they kind of have the look of those like Fabergé eggs now with the gold on them. I also die cut some of the small elements like bows and flowers out of glitter cardstock for another element of shine on these eggs. And then I'll place the large one in the center and then the smaller ones on each side of that so that I have a nice trio of eggs, and then finish it off with a sentiment from the Easter greetings stamps and dies that says spring greetings. There are lots of Easter and spring themed sentiments in that set. For this card, I'm starting with the Tiny Bow Stencil, and I love this stencil. These bows are so adorable. I'm lightly inking them up with some of the Shaded Lilac Distress Oxide ink. Then I took that bow stencil off and placed the rectangular watercolor stencil on top and just added a little bit of the same color, not adding really ink to the brush, just to add a little bit of a hint of watercolor to that central area. Now, this is the Tulip shaker die. I wanted my flower to be like a lilac color, so I've cut it out in lilac and green, and then I snipped off the flower and put that on top of the green one. This way the stem and the leaves are green, but that flower is purple. Now I'm using some foam from Spellbinders, and I'll cut out the outline, and then I'll use those interior dies to cut out the holes in the flower and in the leaves. And I'm doubling up my foam so that I have room for things to move around inside the shaker. I've cut a little piece of the grass border die and put that at the bottom of my watercolor effect. And then I'll place a white tulip on the back. And this is because I want the shaker beads to be on a white background so you can really see them and they pop. Next, I'll adhere down that doubled up foam, and then I'll take a little bit of, this calls for confetti, that anti-static powder tool, and just place it around the outside so that those little shaker goodies don't stick back because of static or because of the glue. And then I put some of the Spring Flowers clay into the leaves, and next I'll take some of the Spring Pastel shaker beads and pour those inside the flower. I love the way the shaker beads sound. They're so cute. So next I'll take the shaker window that I created and add some liquid adhesive behind it. I want to make sure that the liquid adhesive touches all the way around. This way there are no gaps for any of those shaker beads or goodies to come out of. And I'll just place that on top of the foam and line it up. I placed a small foam strip on the stem of the tulip, and then I'll just add my sentiment, which is Happy Spring from the Sentiments, and place that right on top. And just check out all those little shakers, different shakers in different spots. I just love creating those double themed shakers like that. For this card, I'm starting with the Springtime Borders stencil set. As I mentioned, it's a layering stencil. For the first layer, you have the leaves of the flower as well as the top of the carrots. So I'll do those all in green, and then I do wipe off a little bit of the green on the stencil so that I'm sure not to get it into the other parts. I am using the waffle flower shader brushes. Those are smaller brushes that let you get into small areas, but it is good to sometimes clean off a little bit of that ink so that you don't accidentally smear it into one of the spots that you don't want it. Now, the carrots are going to be orange and the flowers are going to be a light purple. So this is very springtime colors, and I love getting lots of different options of colors on there using the shader brushes and the stencils from Pretty Pink Posh. For the treat bucket, you can go back to the original treat bucket dies. It was from a Halloween release, and there's the bucket and a little handle. Now, the edition, the Easter edition, has a means to make a bunny as well as a chick, and you can create that bucket as well as a little sheep. I forgot about the sheep. That little element that I used to make a tail is actually the fluff on top of the sheep's head. So you can get creative and use things the way that you want them, but there's lots of options in that die set. There's also a little layerable carrot, again for the bunny's face, their eyes, nose, and mouth, and layerable ears. So I'll just place those all on as well as those little whiskers. There's a bow that you can add to the handle of the bucket. And then there are some things that you can fill the bucket with. There are little eggs like this that you can create. I decided to cut these out of white cardstock and then just ink blend them a little bit so that they had kind of an egg coloring look to them. And then I'll adhere them all together so that it's like one egg that I am just placing, and then adhere a little bit of liquid adhesive and place that bucket down on top. I found that that is a really easy way to make these clusters. It's kind of tough if you're trying to adhere things down from the front or just figure them out that way. It's easier if you go from the back because then you see exactly what you're going to see from the front, if that makes any sense at all. But now I also have jelly beans, which I cut out of a bunch of different colors. So I added the carrot to the basket and then all these little colorful jelly beans. And then once that's done, I'll add some foam squares to the back of this basket and treats, and then place it right on the stenciled background. It's a very colorful card. There's lots going on. So I just added a sentiment at the top that says "Some bunny loves you," which I think is such a cute sentiment for Easter. I don't know about you, but this new release just brings such a smile to my face. Even though I'm a little scared about how close summer is and how hot it's going to be this year, I can't get enough of these adorable spring designs. But I'd love to hear if anything caught your eye. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Okay, that's weird. The last one took me like 20 minutes, and this one was done in like a minute. Well, just be grateful that this one was so fast. Yay!